a strip of land smaller than New Jersey, 3 major religions, 77 years of controversy that changed the world forever. What you're about to discover isn't propaganda. It's documented history that textbooks often skip. From desert wilderness to technological superpower, from impossible survival to unthinkable conflicts. This is the complete story of how one nation redefined the Middle East. Every decision, every consequence, every perspective. This isn't about taking sides. It's about understanding truth. If you love your country, subscribe now. If you love your mother, drop a comment below. The story begins with a vote that shook the earth. November 29, 1947. The United Nations General Assembly chamber in New York held its breath. Delegates from 56 nations prepared to vote on Resolution 181, a proposal that would change millions of lives forever. The question before them seemed simple. Should Palestine be partitioned into separate Jewish and Arab states? But nothing about this question was simple. To understand that moment, we need to step back. For nearly 2,000 years, Jewish people had lived scattered across the globe, from Europe to North Africa, from Asia to the Americas. They maintained cultural and religious connections to the ancient land of their ancestors, but had no sovereign state of their own. The late 19th century brought a movement called Zionism, led by figures like Theodor Herzl, who argued that Jewish people needed their own homeland to escape persecution. Meanwhile, Palestine, then part of the Ottoman Empire, was home to approximately 700,000 Arabs, both Muslim and Christian, and about 85,000 Jews living together in varying degrees of harmony and tension. World War I collapsed the Ottoman Empire. Britain took control of Palestine in 1917 under a League of Nations mandate. That same year, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration, expressing support for a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, while also stating that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities. These dual commitments contained the seeds of inevitable conflict. Jewish immigration increased steadily, especially after World War II revealed the full horror of the Holocaust, the systematic murder of 6 million Jews across Europe. Survivors had nowhere to go. Many countries, including the United States, maintained strict immigration quotas. Palestine became their destination of hope. By 1947, the population had shifted dramatically. About 630,000 Jews now lived alongside 1.3 million Arabs in Palestine. Violent incidents increased. British forces, exhausted from World War II and unable to maintain order, decided to withdraw and hand the problem to the new United Nations. The UN Special Committee on Palestine, UNSCOP, investigated and recommended partition. Roughly 55% of the land would become a Jewish state, 45% an Arab state, with Jerusalem under international administration. The Jewish leadership, though disappointed with the borders, accepted the plan. The Arab leadership and neighboring Arab countries rejected it entirely, viewing it as a betrayal and injustice. On that November evening, the vote began. Each yes brought hope to Jewish communities worldwide. Each no reflected Arab opposition. When the final tally came, 33 in favor, 13 against, 10 abstentions, the resolution passed. The partition plan was official. Celebrations erupted in Jewish communities. In Arab communities, the response was anger and grief. Both sides prepared for what came next, not peace, but war. Here's the question that still echoes today. Could this conflict have been avoided? Was there ever a path where both peoples could have their rights recognized without decades of bloodshed? And why does this small piece of land continue to dominate global headlines nearly 8 decades later? If you're curious about the answers, hit that subscribe button. This journey is just beginning. May 14, 1948. David Ben-Gurion stood in the Tel Aviv Museum and read a 979-word declaration. "The State of Israel is hereby established," he announced. In that moment, Israel became the first Jewish state in nearly 2 millennia. The celebration lasted exactly 1 day. On May 15th, 5 Arab armies crossed the borders: Egypt from the south, Transjordan from the east, Syria from the northeast, Lebanon from the north, and expeditionary forces from Iraq. Their objective was clear: prevent the establishment of a Jewish state by force. They called it a war of liberation. Israel called it a war of survival. The odds seemed impossible. Israel had no real army yet, just underground militias hastily reorganizing into the Israel Defense Forces. They faced professional Arab armies with tanks, artillery, and air support. How does a nation constantly at war become prosperous? How does a country with known natural resources, surrounded by hostile neighbors, transform from impoverished refugee absorption center to innovation hub? This is the Israeli paradox, the mystery that confounds simple narratives. In the 1950s, Israel was desperately poor. Food rationing continued into the early years of statehood. The government struggled to house, feed, and employ massive waves of immigrants, not just Holocaust survivors from Europe, but also entire Jewish communities fleeing persecution in Arab countries after 1948. Nearly 900,000 Jews from Iraq, Yemen, Morocco, Egypt, Syria, and other Middle Eastern nations immigrated to Israel over the next decades, often arriving with only what they could carry. The country had to create everything from scratch: an economy, infrastructure, a unified culture from dozens of different linguistic and cultural backgrounds, and most urgently, a defense capability. Threats were constant. Egypt blockaded Israeli shipping through the Straits of Tiran. Syria periodically shelled Israeli farming communities from the Golan Heights. Cross-border attacks from surrounding territories killed civilians regularly. In 1956, Israel launched a military operation in coordination with Britain and France, capturing the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt. But international pressure from both the United States and Soviet Union forced Israel to withdraw. The lesson was clear: military victories meant nothing without international legitimacy and support. By the early 1960s, tensions escalated dramatically. Arab nationalism surged under Egypt's President Gamal Abdel Nasser. In 1964, the Palestine Liberation Organization was founded, dedicated to Palestinian self-determination and armed struggle. Arab leaders spoke openly about eliminating Israel. The rhetoric was fierce and the threats felt existential. In May 1967, the situation reached a crisis point. Nasser ordered UN peacekeeping forces out of Sinai, mobilized Egyptian troops along Israel's border, closed the Straits of Tiran to Israeli shipping, and signed defense pacts with Jordan and Syria. From Israel's perspective, the noose was tightening. War seemed inevitable. On June 5, 1967, Israel launched preemptive strikes. What happened next shocked the world. In 6 days, yes, just 6 days, Israel defeated the combined forces of Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. Israeli forces captured the Sinai Peninsula, the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. The military victory was stunning. For Israelis, reuniting Jerusalem after 19 years of division was profoundly emotional. For Palestinians and the Arab world, it was another catastrophe: more land lost, more people under Israeli control. But here's where the mystery deepens: what to do with these territories and their populations. The Israeli government debated intensely. Some argued for returning land in exchange for peace. Others advocated for keeping strategic territories for security. Still others believed in settling these lands based on religious and historical claims. UN Security Council Resolution 242 called for Israeli withdrawal from territories occupied in the conflict in exchange for peace and mutual recognition. But disagreements over interpretation, territories versus the territories, the sequence of withdrawal versus recognition, left the resolution unimplemented. Israel began establishing settlements in the occupied territories. For many Israelis, this was reclaiming historical Jewish lands. For Palestinians and much of the international community, it was illegal under international law and an obstacle to peace. This issue remains one of the most contentious to this day. Palestinian resistance intensified. The PLO, led by Yasser Arafat, launched attacks from Jordan and later Lebanon. Airplane hijackings and international incidents brought the Palestinian cause to global attention. From one perspective, these were acts of terrorism. From another, desperate tactics by a stateless people seeking recognition. In October 1973, on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in Judaism, Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack. Israel was caught off guard. Early days were disastrous. Syrian tanks nearly broke through in the north. Egyptian forces established positions across the Suez Canal. Israel suffered heavy casualties before eventually repelling both armies. The 1973 war shattered Israel's sense of invulnerability. Over 2,600 Israeli soldiers died. The psychological impact was enormous. But paradoxically, the war opened paths toward peace. Egyptian President Anwar Sadat recognized that endless conflict was destroying his country. In 1977, he made a historic decision, flying to Jerusalem and addressing the Israeli parliament. It was unprecedented. An Arab leader in Israel's capital, speaking of peace. With mediation from U.S. President Jimmy Carter, Israel and Egypt signed the Camp David Accords in 1978 and a full peace treaty in 1979. Israel returned the entire Sinai Peninsula, all the territory captured in 1967. In exchange, recognition, peace, and normalized relations. It was a breakthrough, the first peace treaty between Israel and an Arab nation. But it came at a cost. Sadat was assassinated in 1981 by Egyptian militants who viewed him as a traitor to the Arab cause. The mystery persists. Can peace ever be sustained when extremists on all sides view compromise as betrayal? Throughout the 1980s, new suspicions emerged. Peace with Egypt didn't cascade into regional peace. In fact, it isolated Egypt in the Arab world for years. Meanwhile, Israel faced growing challenges on other fronts. Lebanon, once known for its multicultural harmony, had descended into civil war. The PLO, expelled from Jordan in 1970, established a stronghold in southern Lebanon and launched attacks into northern Israel. Israeli civilians in border towns lived under constant threat. In 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon in Operation Peace for Galilee, aiming to destroy PLO infrastructure and create a security buffer. The PLO was expelled, but Israel became entangled in Lebanese politics and faced an emerging new threat: Hezbollah, a Shia militant organization backed by Iran and Syria. Israel's occupation of southern Lebanon lasted 18 years, with mounting casualties from guerrilla warfare. For the first time, significant portions of Israeli society questioned whether the military costs were justified. Meanwhile, frustration built in the Palestinian territories. In December 1987, a traffic incident sparked what became the First Intifada, a widespread Palestinian uprising. It was characterized more by civil disobedience, strikes, and stone-throwing than armed resistance, though violence certainly occurred. The images were powerful: Israeli soldiers confronting Palestinian youth. The Intifada lasted 6 years and changed perceptions. It demonstrated Palestinian determination and willingness to sacrifice. It exhausted Israelis. It convinced many on both sides that the status quo was unsustainable. The Intifada also gave rise to Hamas in Gaza, an Islamic resistance movement that rejected the secular PLO and opposed any recognition of Israel, instead calling for armed struggle. By the early 1990s, the impossible seemed possible. Secret negotiations began in Oslo, Norway, between Israeli officials and the PLO. In September 1993, Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and PLO Chairman Yasser Arafat shook hands on the White House lawn. The Oslo Accords promised Palestinian self-governance in parts of the West Bank and Gaza, and a framework toward final peace negotiations. Hope surged. Maybe, finally, there could be two peoples living side by side in peace and security. But suspicions ran deep. Israeli settlers opposed withdrawing from territories they considered biblically promised land. Hamas rejected the entire process. Palestinian militants continued attacks. Jewish extremists viewed Rabin as a traitor. On November 4, 1995, at a peace rally in Tel Aviv, Rabin was assassinated, not by a Palestinian, but by a right-wing Israeli extremist who opposed the Oslo peace process. The assassination devastated the peace movement. Violence escalated. Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad launched devastating suicide bombing campaigns targeting Israeli civilians, buses, cafes, shopping centers. Between 1994 and 2000, hundreds of Israelis were killed in these attacks. Israel elected more hawkish leaders. Palestinians lost faith in the peace process delivering results. In 2000, the Second Intifada erupted, far deadlier than the first. Over 4 years, approximately 1,000 Israelis and 3,000 Palestinians were killed. The suspicions had been validated in the worst way. The dream of peace seemed further away than ever. Trust, once shattered, is nearly impossible to rebuild. By the mid-2000s, a grim realization set in. Neither side could achieve total victory. Israel couldn't eliminate Palestinian resistance. Palestinians couldn't destroy Israel. The conflict had reached a tragic equilibrium. In 2005, Prime Minister Ariel Sharon, a former general known for his hardline positions, made a controversial decision: complete withdrawal from Gaza. All Israeli soldiers and 8,000 settlers were evacuated. It was traumatic. Soldiers removing crying settlers from homes, synagogues demolished, entire communities uprooted. Some hoped this would demonstrate Israel's willingness to trade land for peace. Others warned it would be seen as weakness rewarded by violence. In 2006, Hamas won Palestinian legislative elections. In 2007, after violent clashes with the rival Fatah movement, Hamas took complete control of Gaza. Israel and Egypt imposed a blockade, citing security concerns about weapons smuggling. Nearly 2 million Palestinians in Gaza found themselves isolated, with restricted movement of goods and people. From 2008 onward, the pattern repeated tragically. Hamas fires rockets at Israeli cities. Israel responds with military operations. Infrastructure is destroyed. Casualties mount, predominantly Palestinian, some Israeli. Ceasefires are negotiated. The situation stabilizes temporarily. Then it happens again. 2008 to 2009, 2012, 2014, 2021. Each cycle brings international condemnation. Fierce debates about proportionality and legitimate defense, humanitarian crises, and deeper trauma on both sides. Meanwhile, something remarkable happened economically. Israel transformed into this startup nation, a global technology and innovation hub. Companies like Waze, Mobileye, and countless others emerged. GDP per capita soared. High-tech exports boomed. Israel became a leader in cybersecurity, agriculture technology, medical innovation, and more. In 2020, Israel normalized relations with the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan through the Abraham Accords. It seemed Israel was finally integrating into the region, becoming indispensable economically and strategically. Discussions about normalization with Saudi Arabia began, but the Palestinian issue remained unresolved. In October 2023, Hamas launched a devastating attack on Israeli communities near Gaza, resulting in approximately 1,200 deaths and over 240 hostages taken. The brutality shocked Israelis and the world. Israel's military response in Gaza has been massive, aiming to eliminate Hamas's military capabilities. The humanitarian situation has become catastrophic, with tens of thousands of casualties reported and widespread destruction. This is where we are now, at the climax of a 77-year story with no resolution in sight. A conflict that has shaped generations, influenced global politics, sparked countless debates, and caused immeasurable suffering. The climax isn't a triumphant ending or a tragic conclusion. It's the painful realization that without fundamental changes, in leadership, in willingness to compromise, in recognizing the humanity and legitimate aspirations of the other side, the suffering continues. Both peoples have legitimate historical connections to the land. Both have suffered enormously. Both deserve security and dignity. Yet the path forward remains elusive, blocked by extremism, fear, historical grievances, and the weight of decades of bloodshed. The Israel-Palestine conflict isn't contained within borders. It has fundamentally shaped global politics, international relations, human rights discourse, and identity for 3/4 of a century. For Jewish communities worldwide, Israel represents something profound, a refuge, a source of pride, and insurance against persecution. After the Holocaust, "Never again" became more than a slogan. It became a driving principle. For many Jews, Israel's security is existential, and criticism can feel deeply personal. For Palestinians and much of the Arab and Muslim world, the conflict represents ongoing injustice, displacement, occupation, and denial of self-determination. Palestinian identity has been forged in large part by this struggle. The Palestinian cause resonates with anti-colonial movements globally. The conflict has polarized international opinion for decades. The United Nations has passed more resolutions on Israel-Palestine than perhaps any other issue. The United States has been Israel's closest ally, providing substantial military and economic aid. European nations generally support Israel's right to exist while criticizing settlement expansion. Russia, China, and others position themselves differently. International humanitarian organizations, including Israeli human rights groups, have documented alleged violations by all sides. Restrictions on Palestinian movement, settlement expansion, home demolitions, rocket attacks on civilians, civilian casualties in military operations. These reports fuel intense debates about international law, occupation, proportionality in warfare, and the balance between security and human rights. On university campuses worldwide, the conflict sparks passionate debates, protests, and sometimes divisive confrontations. Students organize around competing narratives. Academic boycott movements have emerged. The conflict serves as a proxy for broader discussions about colonialism, imperialism, indigenous rights, and justice. Social media has amplified every aspect of the conflict. Videos go viral instantly. Narratives compete in real time. Misinformation spreads rapidly. Both supporters of Israel and supporters of Palestinians accuse platforms of bias. Every incident is broadcast, debated, and weaponized for competing narratives. The conflict has also advanced discussions in international law regarding occupation, civilian protection in warfare, rights of refugees, and legitimate resistance versus terrorism. Legal scholars continue debating these questions using this conflict as a primary case study. Tragically, entire generations have grown up knowing only conflict. Israeli children learn to identify warning sirens. Palestinian children have lived under blockade or occupation their entire lives. Trauma is intergenerational. Fear and mistrust are taught from childhood. Yet there are also rays of hope. Organizations bringing together bereaved families from both sides, joint business ventures, medical cooperation, cultural exchanges, and friendships that cross dividing lines. These are rare and fragile, often criticized by extremists, but they exist. They prove that coexistence is possible, even if political resolution remains elusive. The societal impact is this. The conflict reflects humanity's capacity for both tremendous resilience and tragic stubbornness. It shows how historical grievances can perpetuate suffering across generations, and how difficult, but how necessary, it is to find paths toward mutual recognition and peace.